Here we are today in a very privileged place for the programme. We're going to meet a lady from England called Gemma Markham, and she lives here in this beautiful setting in the province of Teruel, and she's lived here for most of her life. This is actually the Torre del Visco, and Gemma is the owner and manager of the place, and we're going to meet her this morning, and I'm sure she'll be able to tell us hello.
Lovely to see you.
Tell us about your life in Spain and how you found this beautiful place, and
I'd be
how
delighted to do
everything's
so.
going
Yes.
for you.
Shall we find somewhere nice and sunny?
Yes.
Nice and sunny,
Nice
but shady.
and shady.
to
Yeah,
sit. Sun we
yeah.
have plenty of.
Where do
Okay.
you suggest?
I think maybe
on the
if we
way
go
in?
through to the patio,
Yeah,
and
there's
we
a nice little
sit
table
through in the corner.
in the shade there, yeah. Gemma, this is an absolutely beautiful place. How long have you been here? How did you find this?
Well, the story is quite long. Maybe I take it back to the beginning and of coming to Spain. I arrived in 1973. I had finished a degree. I'd worked briefly for the sort of British Cultural Service, and then somebody told me that Madrid was the most wonderful place, and that's why I ended up coming. We lived for 20 years. I lived in for Madrid for 20 years, but the work was very different to this. I was in the publishing and bookselling trade with my husband then, and we had a very good 20 years, but we were both country people. And what we really wanted to do was one day have a proper farm and get out of the city, much as I love them for a few days, but really get out of the...
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, the sort of thing one always does when you get to be 40.
Yes.
But so I identify with Spain. I've always worked here. I arrived the year that, in fact, that Carrero Blanco was killed, so pre the death of Franco, and so I've lived all through the transition in Spain, a fascinating period. So this move, this sort of tremendous lifestyle move, happened 20 years, nearly 21 years ago now, and we decided we were going to sort of stop. We were going to stop working in multinationals. We were going to sell our house in the country. We were going to start afresh and look for a country place that we could imagine living for the rest of our lives. So we started looking.
Very brave, but very exciting.
Well, perhaps more. I see it now, but it didn't.
Yes.
No, you follow your instinct.
Yes,
I think about these things. It was a good stage of life. You either do it when you're feeling strong and active, or I think you probably go on forever saying one day, and it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So one day we did make it happen, but we found it was very difficult to find somewhere that we could really imagine living for the rest of our lives, and sort of creating that project, that lifestyle project. 2 years it took us in the end, and 120,000 kilometres coming out of Madrid and looking all over the place. And it was really, I have to say, when I discovered that I came up from the province of Aragón and Castellón, where we were looking at farms, and somebody mentioned these villages, which weren't even called then the Comarca Matarraña, that's quite new. And I drove around, I thought, this is so beautiful. And it's just an hour and a bit from the Mediterranean coast with all the sort of noise and development there. It is the most wonderful place. Unspoiled, but not primitive. The customs are still maintained, but everyone, they're very modern. There's a good feeling in the villages. You maintain the customs, but there's plenty of young people in most, if not all of the villages. But I think actually, with the crisis and the change in economic climate, more people perceive the country as a good place to live. When we did this 20 years ago, they thought it was an extraordinary thing to do, to come out of a city and a sort of a corporate job and come into the middle of nowhere and restore a medieval building. So that was...
Yeah, absolutely, because this really does feel like being in the middle of nowhere. And did you actually head this way, or were you just travelling around in the area and came across it?
We were pretty systematic, but when we first of all, so we found the area, which was sort of, as I say, it must have been autumn, I think, in 1993. We found, no, 1992. And then we actually managed to find the farm and buy it in 1993, the beginning of, and started work on the restoration. No, it was we discovered the area and then asking and asking. I mean, these days there are estate agents, I think no less than 3 or 4 possibly. In those days it was a question of actually asking around in the bars and the agricultural office until somebody said, oh, they're selling over. Yes, I know somewhere. Because we were, of course, wanted good land, water, somewhere to restore, you know, buildings to restore. And of course the Torre del Visco offered us all that in this most beautiful valley. With the river down, the river Tastavines just down at the bottom of the farm. So that was the start.
Was there the same path leading down here when you first came?
It was rather worse because we keep it, but we have no intention of ever tarmacking it or anything, because if you want peace and quiet, you must be prepared to put up with, it's perfectly passable, as you know, for a normal car. But you must, you know, people should slow down and think of slowing down and think of leaving their, you know, sort of city life and watches and clocks and appointments and obligations behind. And you get here, also the sort of concept, if you like, of the hotel is that the dolce, you don't do anything. I mean, you just relax, you cut off, you sleep, you talk. There is no television, with due respect to the media, but it enables you to do things you wouldn't normally do. You get out of your routine, so you can either have a sort of romantic weekend with your partner. You can just come here to, you know, just to enjoy, to read, to do nothing, just
to get away from it.
You can't often do that these days. You always feel you should be doing something.
It's exactly how it is.
I should say that we inevitably, part of this whole concept is you should also be able to eat extremely well and have a good choice of wine. It's very much part of our whole philosophy of life. The farm, which is, if you like, the background now to the hotel, although the original concept was more farm than anything else, the business plan, the place was so beautiful. The area had nothing in the way of hotels or anything outside the villages. So it was pioneer. The Torre del Visco was the first, if you like, hotel in a rural environment.
Quite, because so long ago there was no sort of rural tourism established at all in the area or anywhere really.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a new concept.
It was a new concept, not for other areas possibly, and certainly not for France or for Northern Europe, but here it was fairly original. I think now, 20 years have gone by, and I would say there is possibly a proliferation of rural tourism in its, with no disrespect, but this is definitely a hotel. We are in the middle of the country, but it's not a rural hotel. No. We have a high level of service. We belong to the Association of Relais Chateaux, which is very demanding in terms of standards, each one in our own way. But certainly when it comes to service, food, etc., which is not what you always find in sort of rural hotels.
And how long did it take you to do the work on the place, to get it ready? Because I imagine it wasn't in this sort of condition when you found it.
It took us, we did it in phases. Phase 1, we created 9 rooms. In fact, the restoration work stopped here. And we left the stable and the part below, as it were, and we started with a very small restaurant upstairs, which is now a sitting room. That we did in 2 years, actually slightly less, and we opened in 1995, so this coming year, 2015, will be our 20th anniversary being open as the hotel. And then this phase we finished with the Millennium, and we created the very nice split-level restaurant, further rooms, a meeting room, etc., more suites, which is what people ask for, with chimneys for winter, their own open fires. We do, I should actually add, actively farm. We have 2,000 olive trees. We grow our own vegetables. It's all organic, 100% organic cultivation. So we produce the most expensive tomatoes and lettuces, but they are absolutely wonderful.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, well, they're just completely different,
Yes.
aren't they? Yes, yes. Maybe we could have a look around.
Yes, of
and
course.
see
Would you
some
like
more
to
of the
go
place
inside?
because
Yes.
yeah, I think this is going to be very interesting.
It's full of sand. I'm a long ways from
So here's our library. This is actually the room I think that is most used in the whole of the hotel. There's something about it, the feeling of the books. We've got a lot of art books. We have a good section on the history of Aragon and of Spain, and actually in history in general. And then a sort of potpourri of literature, of latest things that go, but we tried to keep up to date. A lot of books on flora and fauna to be able to identify them. A good selection of compact discs for people who like music, fairly classic.
So you can put music on in here
and
as well.
And
Lovely.
those who have suites can take the CDs away to their suite. And very important, what actually a lot of people find fascinating is, of course, how did it start? What did you buy? So we bought this in 1992, so it was in need of a little bit of
just a bit.
yes,
Yeah.
of attention, I think the word is. So that was the original state. And when we started work, in 1993, and it was about, as I say, not quite 2 years. to get it to
that's
the first
very,
phase
very
one.
good going.
And then I must show you something else, which is an enormous satisfaction. We do have a number of people who are well known, but we don't talk about them because that's why they come here to be left alone. But we can talk about the official visit of the King and Queen to Teruel in 2002, May. And when they came to the Marca Matarranya, they stayed a night at the Torre del Visco. So there are our staff greeting them with our specially. We do a lot of, as you can see, flowers in the house in general, but this we specially prepared for the Queen, and so they had a night here on there, and they arrived by helicopter, which was splendid, and the weather didn't let us down because it would have been too windy. They couldn't have landed. No, that was a tremendous.
What time of year was it?
It was May, so tremendous satisfaction.
So, beautiful time of
and
year.
with all the roses in the garden, which the Queen loves roses. She loves books, of course, as well, and music. And the King thought the ham was wonderful at breakfast. And our wine cellar he particularly enjoyed as well. So no, it was we really were so pleased that
Absolutely.
was a huge prize to be able to say that.
I'm sure, yeah. And so they landed the helicopter just here.
Just
you've got
below
plenty
there,
of space
we
below.
We do have people who come,
really?
We have the coordinates, and they can land there quite safely and then come on up to the house. Yeah. Would you like perhaps shall I show you some of the other elements, some things that make us different, perhaps? We have, if you want to come through, we've got the wine cellar, which is medieval. The wine cellar, we have it's medieval. Some wonderful signs as you go into that were come back from the 15th century, I think, or earlier possibly. We have a very good selection of wines. We don't try to no other wines other than Spanish, and mostly Mediterranean and Aragonese. So we have because most of our customers want to get to know the wines from around here, or Baltasar Gracian, as we're saying, which is a classic Garnacha wine we like a lot. So that's what we're mostly asked what we recommend. We of course have a good selection of Riberas and Riojas, etc. And then
something for all tastes.
Something for all tastes. And here, as we're in the kitchen now, Kamal's been making bread. He's got to put it in the oven, I think, because it's been.
So you make your own bread?
We do. We bake part of our bread, and we also use the local bakers make some of the between all of us. But it's all freshly cooked, and it's served with our own on the table. You'll find fresh bread, our own olive oil, and tomatoes, and our own produce. Yes, it's got to go into the oven now. So this morning we brought up tomatoes, lettuces. It's all 100% organic, everything that comes up, which is what people really appreciate. It's I think it's very what's the expression now, farm to table, kilometre zero,
Well, it's much
slow
better,
food. That's us. We're slow food,
these tomatoes.
Yes.
You can't buy these
No,
anywhere.
I mean,
anywhere.
they're a bit sort of, yes, they mightn't pass a Brussels test for perfection of their shape.
But they're the best.
They do taste good, yes.
Yeah.
And most of the other produce, we have very good cheeses, goat's cheeses particularly, which are local. We also have, obviously wonderful lamb, kid, pork, the neat, should I not say the Teruel ham, which is absolutely wonderful. And that at breakfast, which we serve in the kitchen,
Right.
without any time scale.
Here at this table.
Yes, if people want it. If they prefer on the terrace or in the restaurant, no problem. There's no time scale.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
not before 8, we always ask in the morning, unless they have to leave for the airport. But beyond that, they might come at midday and they'll still get eggs, bacon, whatever. Anna Marie, who cuts the ham in front of them, tomato bread, of course.
Yeah.
It's the whole open kitchen concept. Providing our guests stay this side, they can ask for recipes, they can talk to the chefs, and of course we do a lot of cookery courses.
Yeah.
We do
that's
short
interesting.
ones on Saturday afternoons throughout the year, and we do the sort of longer, more in-depth courses with guest chefs for 2 days, 3 days. You have to look at our sort of programme of activities. That's along with other ones. So
that's a great kitchen table there,
it's
like a
what
farmhouse
they had in the
table.
farmhouse, exactly. It makes the
the-
difference.
The
It's,
warmest part of the house
yes.
as well in winter. Yeah.
Yes, and the most sociable.
And
And
that's
then
one
you
of
go
the
down
ways to the restaurant.
Through to the restaurant,
Yeah.
yes. You can, of course, go across the patio and in the main door, but a lot of people like to come through the kitchen, talk about what they're doing for the dinner or for lunch, and then go on through, having made up their mind probably what they're going to eat out of the selection. Do you want to come down and
Yes,
see the
okay.
restaurant, which is down here?
Early morning rain with no place to
This is the restaurant we made out of a stable. So we've got these 2 levels. One was this lower level was where the manger used to run along, which provides it with a special dimension, I think. At this time of year, of course, we're serving most of the dinner outside on the terraces, but it's lovely in winter with a fire, or indeed at lunchtime, because and then here we're coming to my favourite spot to sit in the afternoon, evening on the terrace, looking down at the patio, the lower patio, and the meadow below, and just listening to the silence. I'm sorry, that's rather.
with no place to go. Out on runway number 9.
I'll start if you like.
Have a good glass of white wine from
Yes, of course.
the area, from the Matarranya. And you're just in this magical spot between Valderobres and Fuentespalda. We're Fuentespalda. We have 80 hectares. We have a little piece of the farm that's actually enters into, which is part of Valderobres.
Yeah.
So we've got a foot in both camps, but we're Fuentespalda.
I noticed that we haven't seen a swimming pool today. Is that because?
It's a deliberate policy. We've got wonderful natural swimming in the river, the Tastavines, which is just here at the bottom. What could be nicer than swimming in a river? It's so much better than an artificial swimming pool. You can either go here, which is just a 5-minute walk at the bottom of the farm, or you can go to one of the other wonderful rivers that there are and swim as sort of, you can see you've got eagles, you've got orchids, you've got beautiful little waterfalls. It's quite
and
extraordinary.
safe swimming.
Yes, safe swimming, and also completely unpolluted.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable.
You're so lucky to be able to live here, and you've been here for a long time.
Well, I feel very much more, I don't feel, after 41 years nearly in Spain, I mean, I don't feel an outsider. Obviously I have an accent, but I actually think in Spanish, and I identify with here. And in these last 20 years, very much with this area, its development. It took us a long time to find here. I won't say we travelled all over Spain, but certainly a large part of Spain. We looked at sort of Asturias, Cantabria, the Basque Country, the sort of north of Girona, that area. But somehow I do believe, in a sense, that destiny, we had to
Yes.
get to Fuentespalda. We had to come here to the Torre del Visco. It was just meant to be.
Yes.
It's one of those things in life that you feel was right.
Yeah.
And this is where I hope to spend the rest of my days.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I imagine you want to stay here.
Oh yes,
forever.
yes, very much so. I mean, if you have this, where else would you be going?
Absolutely.
I shall have to turn it into an old
Yeah.
people's home when I get too old to go.
You have everybody here to look after
Yes,
you.
I feel quite robust at the
Yes.
moment, may I say. So,
Good.
no, the intention, this is a project that goes on. They're not projects that you finish.
Yeah. No.
There's always something to do better at, to improve, to work on, and the rest of my staff will feel like that. It's a lifetime. It's what we said. It's a lifestyle and a lifetime's project.
Yes, yeah. Because you said that when you chose this place, when you came here, it had the right sort of feeling, and this was like your dream, and you feel
fulfilled. Yes, I mean, how fortunate in life to be able to, if your interests and your passions are decorating, restoring, decorating, cooking. Actually, I don't cook, but I love to eat. Drinking good wines, creating lovely gardens and lovely spaces. What better business can you be in than actually offering that to share with other people? As a business, it has to be said. But it is an absolute, the sort of passion. We're able, fortunately, to run a business that actually involves all the things that we most like doing. And I think that is a huge good fortune in life.
That's
and
the main
in
thing.
An environment that, as I say, the 41 years I've lived here, I've been all over Spain and travelled extensively. It is beautiful, it's wonderful, but I would not move from
you're
Fuentespalda and the
completely
Matarrania.
settled in Aragón. Yes.